So, I wanted to talk about something really interesting today, which is pretty much breaking into journalism. I heard from a lot of you who commented on my original post or people who just messaged me, just being kind of like, thanks so much for this page because I want to work in journalism, but I just don't know how. So, I'm going to offer a few tips, some advice, things that worked for me, and kind of just like what my career path looked like. So, for those who don't know me, I'm a freelance journalist right now, but I've worked at the New York Times, I've worked at the LA Times, I've worked at Axios, and I teach journalism at USC. So I've kind of been around the block when it comes to just, understanding the journalism like industry and how it works. So I went to Penn State for undergrad. I double majored in journalism and African American studies, and I was always just kind of really interested in just kind of representation when it came to media. Just for a little bit more context, even before I was majoring in journalism, I actually came into Penn State as an early childhood education major. So I really wanted to teach. I've always wanted to teach since kindergarten. My dream was to be like a third grade teacher. And when I got to college, I realized how much I really loved just media communications. I had a lot of internships, especially for Penn State football and Penn State athletics, just because I'm a huge sports fan and I just wanted to do more with it. And kind of doing those internships, they were all really based in like social media, photography, videography, and I realized that all of that was really interesting to me. So I kind of started to really explore it more. And at the same time, I was also just really interested in just media and, like I said before, representation. For those of you who have kind of, been in college the past few years, you've seen, so much has changed on college campuses, on the dialogues around race, around social justice, around just kind of all these issues that we're grappling with. And I think when I was an undergrad, that was something that was a big theme. And, social justice has always been something that I'm really passionate about and will probably continue to be passionate about. And while I was doing that, something that I noticed was that our student paper, the papers on campus, they really weren't that diverse. And I was always kind of wondering, like, this is not great. Like, how do we really make these media sites more diverse? How do we make them more welcoming? How do we create an environment that's fair for everyone? And I was like, you know what? Instead of just being angry about how I'm not feeling represented in these news organizations, why don't I just start my own? So with a few friends, we started The Underground, which is a student media site at Penn State. And pretty much what we're doing there is just figuring out, how can we cover stories on campus that mean a lot to people? How can we cover stories on campus that reflect all the races and ethnicities and backgrounds that we see on campus? And I think that we really captured that really well. And after just doing that and being editor-in-chief and really just kind of like, running a newsroom, at least on a really small scale, it made me realize just how much I love journalism. So I switched my major to journalism and ended up graduating with, like I said, that journalism and African American studies degree. And I remember my senior year, I had a lot of internships, was really involved in campus, and I was kind of like, like many of you applying for jobs, like, oh no, like what's next? What do I do? So I had a few job leads, but I also applied to an internship. I applied to the New York Times summer internship and I got it, which really surprised me. I had no idea, didn't think I would get it. And I was kind of faced with this thing of like, do I take a post-grad internship or should I go straight for a job? And I decided to do the internship and it worked out so well. I mean, just being able to live in New York City for an entire summer was already incredible. I live in the East Village, like right down the street from like Union Square, and it was just so much fun to just live like that, even if it was for a few months. And I really enjoyed it. And at the end of my internship, they actually extended it and they ended up hiring me to be a news assistant, which was great because I was able to stay there for about 6 more months and really just understand more about, the industry, learn more about the New York Times. I was an audience intern, so I wasn't necessarily writing stories all the time, but I was doing things like social media, running the New York Times Instagram, running a few other Instagrams, doing SEO, doing just like all of these things that really make journalism impactful online. And it was just so exciting. And after that, my 9 months at the New York Times, I ended up applying for a job in LA at the LA Times and moved across the country. I knew nothing about Los Angeles. I grew up in Philadelphia, have always lived on the East Coast, knew nothing just really about the industry. And I came out here and I loved it. I mean, the weather's great. I've been able to just do so many things, and it was really great. I mean, I almost spent 2 years at the LA Times doing the same thing, like I said, running Instagram, doing just all of these digital, just online things. And it really just made me realize how impactful journalists can be online. So that's why I always tell journalists, like, it's so important for you to really have your brand and like really get yourself out there and really make an impact. That's a lot of why I even have this YouTube channel. Just being able to talk about my experiences and talk about the things that I've done is super important. It's also important, even if you're not even just on YouTube, but maybe an Instagram account, being on Twitter, being on TikTok even. I think there's so many avenues that journalists, especially young journalists, can really start to gravitate towards and start to do more of. So I highly recommend that. And I just want to say, like, I'm definitely speaking to young journalists here. I'm only 24 years old, so I'm not like some super veteran who has it all figured out. I just think that I have had a really good career so far, and I really want to give people the tools and the knowledge so that they can be successful as well. But back to the whole career story. So like I said, lived in LA, been living here for about 2 years, and started working at Axios, which is another digital media site. They're based in DC. They do a lot of politics work, super interesting stuff. And I really liked it, but I think that during the pandemic, I started realizing that I wanted to kind of do my own thing. I think that there were a lot of projects and passions and things I just really wanted to explore. And for those of you who kind of don't know a ton about how journalism works, if you're working in a newsroom, so kind of what I was doing, you're not really allowed to do like outside work. So you can't really like work for other organizations. You can't really do kind of freelance stuff, and that's something that I really wanted to do. So I ended up quitting Axios and doing some contract work. So right now I'm a contract worker at Facebook, so I do a lot of work with global elections, which has been super exciting, super rewarding, really fascinating. I do some social media work on the side. I write some columns, doing this YouTube channel for fun because I've really enjoyed it. Just being able to explore a lot of different passions, and I think it's just so important to really realize that. I think that for so long we were kind of told, like, you know, you graduate, you get your journalism job, and you work your way up. But I think that your career paths can look so different. Don't feel like you have to start at some local agency and kind of go all the way up and get to the New York Times as your final destination. I think that we're really in an age where you can really, you know, craft your own career path. I think you can start thinking about, you know, what are the maybe 2, 3, 4 things that I'm really passionate about? What do I want to learn? What do I want to succeed at? And then figure out the ways that'll take you to get there. I think it's really easy to want to work at a prestigious place because of all the name and the recognition. But if you're not really getting the type of growth and the type of career development that you want, what's the point of working there? I always tell students, I talk to a lot of students about just career paths and things, and I always tell them, focus less on the name and focus more on the things that you want to achieve. So when you're looking for jobs, when you're looking to break into the journalism industry, when you're looking to apply, make a list. What are the 5, 10, 15 things that I want to accomplish, and how can I do that? And figure out, you know, what internships, what fellowships, what jobs get me there, and apply to those fellowships. I think that a lot of times we think that you can't have an enriching fellowship at a local place, but you totally can. I mean, I have friends who've worked at the local level and had way more impact and have enjoyed it way more than they would working at a national publication. So I think it's important to just ultimately do what works for you. I think it's really easy to kind of see what everyone else is doing and saying, oh, I want to do that too. How do I work on that? But I think it's so important that we're really just focusing on our careers and what we want to accomplish. So like I said, that's kind of just how my career path has grown. I don't think I mentioned this before, but I also teach at USC. I teach journalism, so if there's any Trojans listening, definitely take some classes with me. But I'm gonna make a video later on in a few weeks and kind of talk about how to break in as an adjunct professor, which has been really rewarding. But I think all this just to say that the journalism industry is just so wide, and media in general is just, there's so many opportunities and so many things you can take advantage of. So definitely do that. Just know that there's not one career path, and definitely feel free to just kind of, you know, forge those career paths of your own. So I hope that's helpful for anyone out there. If you're kind of thinking like, hey, I have more questions about this, or I want to know more about your career, definitely let me know. Feel free to email me, hello@adrianalacy.com, or follow me on Instagram at Adriana J. Lacey, or even just put something in the comments and I'll be sure to respond. So that's that, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.